All right, it's time for a fall tour. Come join me in the chaos.
That's where the wild things grow, grazing nature's rhythm, letting the seeds we sow. Yeah, the sun will throw a dirt between our toes. God's rules for plants only Father Adam knows.
All right, so the ARC 45s have exploded with growth. It also looks like I have one of my grape cuttings is kind of started growing over here too, so some competition. And then there's a elderberry peeking out back here. I love those flowers from the blackberries. It's an ARC 45. There's a Primark. This is a thornless. I put all the thorned ones on the perimeter. And here's a heritage raspberry. Those are so fragrant. Something random, I chaos seeded a whole bunch of asparagus seeds. Something Mary. Heritage raspberries taking over this corner. And then my ARC 45 is competing right next to it. My goal is to have every inch of this fence just covered with food. Elderberry here. I like the elderberries because they have the nitrogen fixing bacteria. And then you can do some chop and drop to get some nutrients in the soil. Another elderberry, blackberry right next to it. This is a riparian grape I'm experimenting with right next to that. And then I just had some tree trimming here, so this blackberry vine kind of got crushed, but one of the runners, one of the canes survived, but the rest of it's looking kind of sad. But this thing got trimmed, so I should get a lot more sunlight back here in my vineyard. This is a Primark Freedom. Been getting a lot of growth too, this cluster. These things are delicious. It's kind of cool because it gets these weird double berries. I think I talked about that in another video. I did notice on the blackberries, if you let these vines sit on the ground, the berries sit on the ground, the slugs around here go nuts. Look what these slugs did to these. They just completely coated those. So you got to make sure your fruit is off the ground. I mean, that should be pretty obvious, but I didn't think about it. So that's my own fault. So I lost all that. I'm probably not going to eat all that fruit that's coated with slug slime. Yeah, and those are so good. Sorry for eating on camera. It's probably kind of gross. That was doing great. This is like a black currant. I got the black currants just because they have some significance for me. There's a really popular talk that was given about black currants, and so I got some. I'm just not a big fan of the flavor. It's a very funky flavor. So I'll have to figure out what to do with black currant. If you have any recipes or something good for black currant, let me know. So this is my vineyard. Just started training them for the first year. So I'll prune them probably just to the wire. I'll take all the branches off and just trim them up and tie them to the wire this first year. This is the first year they've hit the wire. So some pretty decent growth in the vineyard. And these are all Labrusca varieties, just a few different varieties, or a few different, cultivars of Vitis Labrusca. So I got a couple, Concords, and some, what else? Reliance. I think I talked about a bunch of them on another video. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's one of the few ones I need to label. Go back through in my old video and figure out which one's which. Some blackberries that I put that are kind of spreading here. So I think what I'm gonna do is just kind of see what does best in my vineyard area, and then just kind of select for the thing that does best. So it's a little bit of chaos back here, just switching back and forth between blackberries and grapes. The idea is, though, is each plant seems to focus on a certain distribution of nutrients. And so by having diversity, they don't directly too harshly compete with each other. And another benefit of blackberries, if you don't know this, is they as well will house nitrogen-fixing bacteria in their roots, rhizobia. And so that's beneficial as well, because they will produce their own fertilizer, so to speak. And then right here is my little patch of, can you guess? Yep, that's asparagus. Whole bunch of asparagus. Well, not a whole bunch. I guess this is just 4 plants, 4 crowns. But I haven't harvested any yet, so each one has multiple, I don't even know what they're called, shoots. Little ferny looking things. And then over here is more of the seed kind of asparagus. So I think I bought a 1/4 pound of seeds. It was like $10 for a 1/4 pound of St. Mary or Queen Mary or whatever the common one is. And so I just kind of threw them everywhere. More grapes. And I did notice that just having, even though you don't really need irrigation here, everything grows fine without irrigation. But ever since I started the irrigation, like everything's been growing a lot faster. Because I notice on really hot days, everything just kind of stops because there's just not quite enough water. So photosynthesis stops. But you can fix that by, on really hot days, you just put on the drip system for an hour or so, or whatever you need to do. I think I do mine actually for 20 minutes. But I do it just enough to kind of wet the first few inches of soil, and then it keeps my plants growing so they don't take a break during the really hot days. And then over here I have a bunch of volunteer yellow tomatoes. Last year I didn't really like these. I ate a few of them and just kind of left them. And of course by leaving them they just kind of went nuts. But I really like them now, especially since I've started trying to eat a little healthier. So I kind of mix them with my salads and stuff. Really good. And then just tons of blackberries. These guys fruited this spring, but they're supposed to put out a fall crop and they never did. It's supposed to be a primocane fruiting variety. And I'm not really sure what happened. It might have not just been enough water, but tons of growth. So I think they're gonna take over this little section over here. I think that's most of the interesting stuff in my vineyard. Oh, a small thing over here. I have a little maypop that popped up here. I put some seeds from a maypop from the other side of my yard right here, and this little baby Passiflora incarnata popped up right there. So that's a maypop. Ooh, nice. And some decent raspberries over here. Not quite all. Ooh, that one's really good. They kind of fade, if you're familiar with raspberries, they kind of fade to a slightly darker color when they're slightly overripe. And I prefer the overripe ones. These ones are decent too. They're a little bit more tart. And it's kind of nice when you have a couple overripe ones and a tart one. The tart ones seem to almost have more flavor. Like if you wanted to use them for like flavoring and add sugar and stuff, they seem to have more intense flavor to contribute to the syrup or the jam or whatever the thing is you're making. But yeah, these are really fragrant, really good. All right. All right, mulch is my biggest secret. Don't tell anyone. Just kidding. I'll bring it up like every video. All right, so what is this? My southwest orchard. And this is a scorpion pepper, Trinidad scorpion. And you got to be careful with these. Like, I was trying to flex picking these things and I just wasn't paying attention to how hot they were, because I like really spicy stuff. But these ones are random. Like I picked some, they weren't too bad. I mean, they're still pretty darn spicy. I would say somewhere around 1,000,000 Scoville. But I didn't water this thing for like a month, and I didn't think about what that would do to the peppers. Some of the ones I picked were so spicy, like it was almost like poison ivy on my hands, or icy hot. Like I picked these things and I just didn't wash my hands afterward, and it was burning. So I washed my hands, and then like the next day, after I'd washed my hands really well with soap, because I know it's like an oily type, you know, capsaicin is like an oily type hydrophobic molecule. So I washed my hands really well, and the next day I rubbed my eye or something, and I still had burning on my eye. So very, very strong capsaicin in this Trinidad scorpion. So if you've ever tried growing Trinidad scorpion, very spicy. I would guess over 1,000,000 Scoville. I've heard some people say that if you do the right combination of water and withholding water, you can push them to 2,000,000 Scoville. Very spicy. I made some hot sauce with it as well. Picked like 12 of them and made a hot sauce, and it's like ridiculously hot. So if you're local and you know me, I'll put a drop on a potato chip, see if you can handle it. But yeah, this is a pear tree. And yeah, I cut it down. This one I believe I cut down this year. So that's 1 year's growth here. You'll notice that these ones are a little smaller. These scions, I should say, are a little smaller. This one I also cut down this year, and this one I cut down this year. So last year I cut them all down except for those three, because I was kind of afraid I was going to kill them. I wasn't really exactly sure what was going to happen. So these ones are a little behind. Oh, and I forgot to say this one's an apple. So we got pear, apple, pear. This is a Royal Empire. Last year it was heavily shaded, so it didn't really grow very well. This year's doing a lot better. Have not got any fruit from that yet. This one, my scions actually blew off. I think actually one scion, the other one didn't. And so what happened is I didn't think about reinforcing the scions, and I just kind of let them grow. And these ones I did last year, looks like this one survived, but that one actually sheared off in the wind. So what I started doing is putting a deck screw, so that they're coated with like this Teflon-y plastic. I think they're green or blue, I forget what color, probably green. And it's already buried in here, but you basically take a 5-inch deck screw, and then you screw it all the way through the scion and into the trunk, and then the deck screw will reinforce the connection of the scion to the tree. Because you got to remember, if you think about tree rings, each ring is like a year's worth of growth that kind of lays down like a veneer. And so after a year, you just have a very thin layer connecting the scion to the tree. So you have to go through a few years before you get enough layers of wood to keep them on the tree very strongly, very strong. So here's another pear. That one's a little bit bigger, definitely bigger than my wrist. You can see it better from this side. And I don't know, probably about 15, 20 feet up. This one seems to have grown the best. I can't even fully see that one from this close. Let me see if I can get a wide angle view of that. So that one's really done well. So I had a split trunk here, and you can actually see the remnant of where this thing sheared off. So this was the day before I did all my deck screws, and that was the last one to shear off. And that's when I was like, fine. Like I was delaying putting deck screws through them because I was worried it was going to kill them. Like I didn't know if you could do that. And I looked online and no one said you could. I saw some people use like these little tiny skinny nails when they first did the grafting, but I'd never seen someone do that to an older graft that was a year old. So it's kind of an experiment. So I ended up doing it, and it actually works really well. You can kind of see the wound here, but that's what these things look like. This one's even bigger. So I have a Fuji scion and a Gala scion. I haven't got any fruit from it yet, because like I said, I grafted it last year, but I would suspect that next year I should get some fruit, because that's pretty good sized branches, and I'm guessing they've probably stored a decent amount of energy for fruit. This is a sucker that came off of this apple tree. So down here I'll get little suckers that come up, and I was thinking about buying more trees, but you know how those websites are charging like 80, 90, even more for a tree. And I realized I have free trees popping up all the time, but you know, they're rootstocks. And since I know how to graft, I just started digging them up. Since I know how to graft, I've been just digging up my suckers and planting them in different parts of my yard. So this one, that one, one past it, and then these two are all suckers that I dug up last year and just stuck them in these different spots with mulch. And so what I did this year, let's see if I can see my graft unions. This year I grafted them. So there's one graft union here, one graft union here. And so they're multi-grafted trees. So I took scions from all my trees, my Royal Empire, my Gala, my Fuji, etc. And I grafted those in this spring. They're only like small scions. If you look on my other videos, you can see the videos of me actually grafting these trees. I think I recorded a few of the graftings. I used whip and tongue. You can kind of see from the, here we go, from the scar right here, the Z graft, or whip and tongue. Focus. You can kind of see that little zigzag there. That's what the graft scar looks like a year later. So, and then I just put Chaos Apple as the label for the tree, just kind of as a joke, pointing to my channel. This one has 3 different scions, so that's gonna look really cool. This one is a store-bought Mutsu. One of my sources of scion wood. This one is a Fuji. And I think I actually planted these in summer. I think it was summer of last year, possibly the summer before. So these things have done extremely well. And then I have some cherry trees over here. And yeah, I know, they're all close together. I've had a lot of people say, oh, those are close together. Can you do that? Absolutely. It's called intensive planting. I might regret it eventually, but it just requires extra pruning. But I enjoy monitoring the growth of my trees, so that's no sacrifice to me. Got a couple pears, no, peaches, sorry, peaches. Peach tree here. And I think this one is actually a rootstock. This is another store-bought one. I bought it from one of those websites that advertises that you can like send stuff back and they'll give you like a refund or something like that. But who has time for that, right? I just let it sucker out after the top died, and then I'll just graft it. I might put a cherry or a plum. I grew this one from seed. So this is a peach seed. And then over here I have some black gem blackberries. So I think I got like 6 of these guys in random places around here. So this is a thornless primocane blackberry, and it's growing pretty well. There's another one, black gem, black gem. Some of the berries came out a lot bigger. These ones are a little bit smaller. Very sweet. Ooh, pumpkin. These are some heirloom pumpkins that I've been growing since a couple years ago. Sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're like this pastel orange color. They're like the heirloom ones that are like very solid on the inside. They're really hard to carve jack-o'-lanterns out of because they don't hollow very well. Almost seems like a gourd of some sort. I'm not sure. Some sort. Anyway, another black gem. This one right here is a hazelnut, and it's been suckering out like crazy. The middle one's looking kind of sad on the leaves. I don't know if that's just from getting old, like ready for fall type old, because all these other ones look fine. But that could also be why it's suckering so crazy. Maybe the inside tree is diseased in some way or dying. Oh, I actually see a caterpillar right there. Maybe. Oh no, That is some type of a pollen thing, I think. I've never seen that happen on this. I wonder if that means it's a male instead of a female hazelnut. That's funny. I'll have to look into that. If you know, let me know. But I think that's the pollen. Not cattails, catkins? I forget the words. I learned all that stuff a long time ago. That's a chrysanthemum there. I actually overwintered that in my basement. And that's a new chrysanthemum. A whole bunch of these tomatoes. I don't know what type they are. Someone said they think they're Romas, but I'm not sure. I just know someone gave me a tomato plant. Someone gifted me a tomato plant 2 years ago, and I had it here. And ever since then, I just get volunteer tomato plants popping up. So I just put one of these rods next to them, and I just tie them to there, and then get free tomatoes for the whole year. Tons of strawberries in there, some other flowers. I did an experiment on propagating roses, and I had these crazy colored ones. So that's the results of the experiment. So if you're one of the ones that's watched my rose videos, that's one of the rose experiments. Cherry tree, this was just a little whip last year, and they're getting pretty big. So in fall, I'm probably gonna half the length of all these, just to try to keep the cherry tree a little bit more, the growth, I'm gonna keep it smaller. And then this is my strawberry bed. Probably need to weed this a little bit, but it's been putting out runners like crazy. I started off with just a couple that survived winter, my very first year here 2 years ago. And the ones that survived put out, you know, I don't know how many runners, 4 or 5 runners each. So I probably had like 15 last year. And then this year, it's just like an explosion. Like if you look on these tips, like each one of these guys is putting off like 3 or 4 strawberry plants. Like right here, you can just see all the runners. There's like 20 new strawberry plants just trying to form in this little area. So I'll pick them up periodically and stick them off to the sides, and they'll just, that one will root, and then it'll stick off another one, kind of like a hopscotch or something. It'll hopscotch its way across the yard. It's kind of cool just to see how they're taking over this bed. With minimal interference, I probably wouldn't have to do anything, but I do try to keep them all from going to the same spot. So I'll kind of, you know, go in one spot where there's like 5 of them, and I'll just spread them out as far as I can. But this is pretty cool because this ended like right there, I would say like 4 months ago. And now it's literally just creeping its way across here. I was thinking about stopping it at these bricks, but we'll see. Maybe I'll just I'll try to force it to crawl that way. Because I would love, instead of having a grass ground cover around my orchard over here, how cool would that be just to have a ground cover of strawberries? This is a black raspberry, and this is my main black raspberry patch. So I had a couple black raspberries. I did a video about this too. Black raspberries don't fruit the first year, but they'll fruit like crazy the second year, and then they're supposed to die. But this particular variety is a rebel because I kept some of the canes from year 2, and they put off side shoots, and they fruited again a third year. So this particular variety, I don't know what to call it, but it fruits twice. Doesn't fruit on first year canes, but it fruits on second and then again on third. So super cool. And I'm creating this thick hedge right here. And I'm trying to get it to creep all the way across here because I would like to cover the entire front of this part of my property. And then as you see over here, I have this one and then one over on the corner by that stop sign. And I've mulched it heavily and attached both of these to my drip system. And they've been growing like crazy. So the hope is eventually I'm just gonna fill in the front here. And it's mainly because I want to have some type of a border. Because most people have the respect to not wander through your property. Every once in a while I'll have like a kid or some random person just kind of like walk right through my yard and just stomp on stuff. So that can be kind of frustrating. I don't want to have to be like, hey, don't run through my yard. I don't want to be that guy. So just having something thorny around the edges, I think will just dissuade people from putting themselves in a situation where I have to awkwardly ask them to not, you know, stomp on my plants. but I wouldn't hesitate to stop someone from stomping on my plants. But I just rather not be the grumpy garden dude, even though I might come across if I have to yell at someone. This area wasn't really doing too well with grass, and so I just decided to put mulch here. I might actually start a strawberry patch on this side. Then I have a little, I can't remember what kind of tree that is. Some kind of evergreen, blue spruce. So those can get really big. So I'll probably just grow it for a few years. It's supposed to be a Christmas tree. I really wanted one that was probably twice that size. That was the only one my wife could find, so she gifted that to me on, I can't remember if it was my birthday or last Christmas or Father's Day or something. And so the hope is within a few years we can, decorate it with lights and things around Christmas time. This bed has a whole bunch of gladiolas, and I think I have some black raspberries trying to grow over here. This video is probably getting really long. Some more black raspberries right here, all freshly irrigated. This is my main mushroom bed right here, so I always dump extra mulch here, but I get tons of wine cap mushrooms here. Some more ARC 45 blackberries, little pear tree, black raspberry, elderberry, black raspberry, another blackberry. This is an ARC 45, I believe. So these elderberries that I'm showing though, elderberry, these were some excess cuttings. So I got a whole bunch of cuttings when I cut back my elderberries. I cut them all the way to the ground, and I had a whole bunch of cuttings. I gave a ton away, but I had like 100 left over that no one wanted, and I didn't want them to go to waste. And so I literally just walked around the perimeter, just chaos sticking them or guerrilla gardening them. I guess it's not guerrilla gardening if it's on your own property. But I just started shoving them along the fence line, and most of them survived somehow. Like, they weren't even irrigated until a few weeks ago. Like, I didn't even irrigate them over summer. And then it occurred to me I might as well. And then when I saw how cheap it is for the distribution, the irrigation tubing, it's only like $35 for 500 feet of it. So I was able to do all of my yard for minimal cost. Since I did it all myself, I didn't have to pay anyone. Another ARC 45, elderberry, black raspberry, ARC 45. I did have some people tell me you're not supposed to plant raspberries by blackberries, and I don't really see the problem. Some people say they pass diseases back and forth. They seem to grow really well here, at least in Missouri. So I don't know if that's a certain place that has issues, or maybe I'll regret it in a couple of years and tell everyone not to do that. But as it seems right now, I'll just plant everything everywhere and let natural selection decide, in my opinion. Another ARC 45, a whole bunch of black raspberry, or a whole bunch of elderberry over here. There's another stash of mulch. So I have some friends that are arborists that are constantly hooking me up with as much mulch as I can want. They probably think I'm hooking them up with space to dump their mulch though, because I think our dump charges a lot of money for arborists to dump their mulch. So here's another grafted pear tree. Lots of pears. I have 6 of them here. These were all Bradford pears that I chopped down and then I grafted. And then here's another new pear tree. So I'll graft these next year. And then over here, I'm starting another hedge of black raspberries. This one's really going nuts now that I irrigated it. I just added the drip to that one. This one, and then these two. It's interesting how fast black raspberry grows if you give it automated watering. It'll still grow fine without irrigation because it's, grows wild here. But man, it grows a lot faster with water, and it also grows way more fruit. Like, I've had a lot of people tell me that if you want a lot of fruit on a black raspberry, you have to get the improved varieties. And I mean, that might be an improved variety, I don't know. But I do know that when it's irrigated, it produces like 4 or 5 times more fruit. Like, instead of just getting like 5 or 10 berries per cluster, per branch tip, you'll get like 50 or 60. It's incredible how many more berries you get. like noticeably more. This is a multi-variety a friend gave me. So this has like this is a 4-in-1 apple tree. So that'll be kind of cool as this takes off, and also as a source of scion wood. This is a cherry, bush cherry. I think that's a wild plum or a black, yeah, wild plum. That one's sickly. I think that's a pear or an apple. And this right here, I believe, is a black cherry. So I'm not really sure about the black cherry. I kind of got that because I used to love black cherry soda. It was like nostalgic for me as a kid. If you grew up in the 90s and you had black cherry soda, shout out. But that's why I got this one. And I got it really cheap off of one of those, what do they call them? It's like those websites that are promoting forestry and land management or something like that. So this is a wild type variety. And anyway, they sell like little seedling whips for like $1 each or something if you order 10. So I think for like 10 bucks I got a bunch of random things, including that black cherry. I think that's all for the backyard. Oh yeah, I forgot about the bush cherries over here. So this might be too close together because I've heard these bush cherries can get huge. And so I only planted them 2 or 3 feet apart. So basically the idea here is I'm going to try to create a hedge of these bush cherry. They're Nanking cherries is what they're called, Nanking cherries. So if you're familiar with Nanking cherries, the bushes can get huge. Like I've seen these things get like 15 feet tall. So I'm gonna attempt to create a little hedge here just to like frame off this corner of my house. And then behind it I have a elderberry and then a whole bunch more black raspberries back here. Another ARC 45 right here against the house, and some figs. These are Chicago hardy figs. So I haven't really gotten any fruit. I mean, I see some little figlets on it, little baby fig fruits. I think I had a couple that fell off before I noticed them, or it might have been squirrels that stole them. I'm not sure. It's not quite squishy yet. I knew when I grew them in Arizona, they would get squishy and they'd still be mostly green, and I would just pick them off and eat them. I know obviously this isn't zone 9, this is zone 6 that I'm in now. This is a tiger fig, also called a variegated fig. If you look real close, and my camera would focus properly, you can see that there's stripes, yellow stripes and green stripes on the stems. So that's another variety of fig. I'm building a greenhouse in the backyard, so I think I might put some of these figs in the greenhouse. I think I should get more fruit. A whole bunch more blackberries along this section of the house. And then I have some grapes climbing the house. And then this is actually a tropical lilikoi passion fruit. Gives tons of fruit too, but I gotta take that guy in the house in the winter. And then this is another ARC 45. This is a really good spot too, because I get massive berries. Like, if you're not familiar with the ARC type blackberries, they're much bigger than regular wild blackberries. But I think they compensate by giving you less fruit. So I don't know if you actually get more fruit. You might, but I do know that the fruit you get is much bigger. It's kind of fun just to pick these giant berries, and then it's definitely a lot of berry. Like, it's almost like you gotta take up 2 bites of them type berries. Wow. Some are super sweet, some are a little bit more sour. But these ones have been pretty sweet. And you can almost tell, like if you look really close, they kind of have a red hue to them when they're not quite ready. I think most people that have grown up with blackberries know that trick. You know, make sure there's no red left, no red hue to them. almost no light going through them, and then you know that they're going to be very sweet. All right, and this is the northeast side of my land. So over here I have some mint that just kind of does its thing over here, and this pretty big elderberry bush. So 2 years ago I was digging up some root cuttings. Yeah, root cuttings of my elderberry plant way over here. I dug one up as an experiment, put it over here just to see what happened, and it worked really well. So yes, you can grow elderberry just fine from stem cuttings, but root cuttings, if you get a big chunk of root, you can start an elderberry plant that's much, much stronger and much faster, much more aggressive. So if you really want to get started fast with elderberry, root cuttings work the best. Over here is another black raspberry, and this one's actually doing really well without any water, which is amazing. This is not irrigated, but this must be a really good spot for it, because I didn't think it would grow here, because it's like there's only like 3 or 4 hours of sunlight in this spot right here, but that must be just enough that it's able to not dry out too much. So I think it's kind of a balance like that when you're in zone 6. You want it to be sunny, but you don't want the soil to dry out since you're not irrigating. Unless you irrigate, and then you want as much sun as possible. But if you're not going to irrigate, then having some shade is actually a good thing, because it doesn't, the soil doesn't dry out. Because if the soil dries out, the plant's going to stop growing anyway. These are wildflowers. So I got a wildflower mix from Tractor Supply and just kind of scattered them everywhere in the backyard. And I haven't mowed this year. So 0 mowing this year. I don't know if you can tell. It looks a little ratty, but it's almost like pasture land. Like, I was expecting it to be really, really tall grass. And it could be just dogs kind of help stomp it all down. But it's fun because I get all these wildflowers and little baby trees popping up everywhere. It's kind of interesting too, because I'll just randomly dump mulch in different places, and I'll get like random fruit trees popping up as well, because of seeds that are in the remnants of the mulch. Like for example here, this volunteer popped up, a little pear tree. I think that's a Bradford, so I'll end up grafting it. Another pear tree over here. And a volunteer rose plant came up in my mulch, which is kind of cool. So I'll probably graft some of my multicolored roses that I showed earlier. Here's another pear tree. Blackberry. This blackberry is growing super slow because I don't really have any irrigation right here. It's kind of a dry spot. And then on the top of that mountain, so this was a rock pile when I first moved in, and it's still a rock pile, but what I've done a few times is I'll take an entire load of mulch and just dump it on top of the rock pile. And so the mulch has started breaking down, turning into soil, and now it's become a little hill with things growing in the hill. So this area wasn't really useful for growing anything, and I'm trying to turn it into like a little orchard hideout area. This one I dug up. It's not doing very well, but I dug up a sucker from one of my pear trees and stuck it there. Here's another pear tree sucker. So that's a rootstock. I believe it's a Bradford, but I'm gonna graft it, of course. Something that's really cool, hopefully the dogs don't destroy it, because the dogs love messing with this area right here, but it's somehow survived. That's a pawpaw, I think. So 2 years ago, I had a whole bunch of pawpaw seeds that I just kind of scattered along the ground and just poked holes and shoved them in. That's the only one that's come up so far. So I would love to get a bunch of pawpaws in this shady area. So this is my pond that I created. It's like a natural pool, and it looks kind of gross right now because the leaves all fell in it. But it's intended to be this way because it's actually, I want it to be like an amphibian resort, so to speak. There's not really any amphibians in this part of Independence where I live. And so my goal is to eventually, hopefully, some frogs will move in, lay eggs, and then I'll add to this ecosystem, hopefully some frogs, because there are a lot of mosquitoes and flying insects and things, partly because the only thing I have to eat them around here is dragonflies and birds. So it would be nice to have some frogs or other amphibians. So next year I might go frog hunting, unless that's illegal, and then of course I won't do that. But go frog hunting and maybe put a couple frogs back here and see if they want to stay for a while. But I did put some fish in here, some mosquito fish that I had in my dog, what's it called? A dog water, my trough for the dogs. And so that was just an attempt to keep the mosquito larvae from exploding with growth. I can't see the fish right now, so I think I scared them. And then over here I have my greenhouse that I'm working on. I got super excited and I was working on it, and then I just kind of stopped working on it. So I need to finish this thing. But if you look at it, you can kind of see what I'm thinking about doing. Probably just put a slanted roof on it. And then I think I need to cap the 2x4s as well. So I just I did some framing when I was younger, and so just followed the basic rules of framing. I don't know if you can build a greenhouse that way. I mean, I did it, but I don't know if you're quote unquote supposed to. This is a place my dogs like to dig. So it's an old tree right here that has whatever that is, mer honeysuckle, I think. And I put an elderberry cutting here. I think that's an apple rootstock that I put right here. I'm gonna water it. Looking kind of sad. Over here is like my main source of elderberry though. So the main trick for elderberry is just lots of mulch. Just dumping a bunch of mulch here, I was able to get a ton of fruit. Filled up 2 trash bags full of fruit from just these plants. And then I have some marionberry that have not produced yet. So I put marionberry blackberries right here when I first moved in, and they have not produced. I don't water them, so maybe that's why. And then I have a bunch of boysenberries that produce tons of fruit right here that are actually in the shade, but I never water. So it might be one of those situations where the soil just doesn't dry out of the way. But a couple weeks ago, I did add an irrigation line under here, and I have emitters like every, I don't know, plant, every 4 feet or something. So I'm thinking next year this area will probably do a lot better with the water. And then that's kind of back where we started. So you can kind of see how this is like pasteurized land with all these black walnut trees popping up. So if you want any black walnut trees, I'll give you some free ones. Just got them popping up in my yard. Dogs love eating the black walnuts. And of course so do the squirrels, which mysteriously vanished recently. No idea what happened, just kidding. Come here, buddy. You want to come over here? What a bunch of good dogs. You guys don't want to say hi? We got Penny, we got Pound, we got Mud. You guys love your yard? Oh, you want to play? All right. I think that's going to be it. I'm going to go play with them. They love when I throw this tire for them. You're going to throw it once on the camera, and then I'll play with you more. I know, that's fun, huh? Ready? So we went through a lot of dog toys, and then I realized this old wheelbarrow tire pretty much lasts forever. So if you have an old wheelbarrow, don't throw the tire away if you have dogs, because they can't chew it up. I mean, they can't destroy it. Hey, no fighting. All right, I'm gonna go and play with them so they're not fighting over who gets to chase the toy.